podcasters, this is Brooke with Let's Talk Art. Today I'm talking art with Scott Ginsberg. He's an author, speaker, strategist, inventor, songwriter, and movie maker. Oh yeah, and he wears a name tag 24/7. I'm going to find out how he juggles all of these projects and find out his advice on how to get into the entrepreneurial mindset. Enjoy!
Hi, Brooke. How are you?
Hey, Scott. How you doing?
Doing great. My air conditioning's on in the back. Is that distracting?
Nope, I can't even hear it.
Okay, great. Because I'm hot, so that works well.
No, that's fine. You're hot in New York?
Well, what happens is winter lasts until May. So over the past couple of days, it was still cold and crappy. And then today, just decided we're going straight to summer.
Oh,
so
okay.
now I'm hot. So now for the next 6 months of my life, I'll be sweating.
Right. Well, it's kind of like that in Charlotte because it goes back and forth. Like today, it's supposed to be summer, but it's winter. It's decided to be cold, and so it's you never know how to dress.
Yeah. Well, where do you live in Charlotte?
Charlotte. I live off of Central. Do you know where that is?
I don't. I used to go to Charlotte all the time because my mentor lives there,
Mm-hmm.
and I would hang out at his office, which is it's kind of by the Dowd YMCA.
Was it Jeffrey Gittimer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him too.
He's the best. Yeah,
He's great.
he and I go way back, about almost 20 years now, and
Wow.
I used to go to his office and shadow him and whatnot, and I would hang out in the whatever area of Charlotte that is.
Yeah, that's uptown basically, I think.
Okay. Yeah, his office is the former Lance Cracker Factory.
Yeah, that's there.
It's
So
super
yeah,
cool.
I've run into him a lot, and I actually I just reconnected with him and his wife.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah, they're
that was
lovely.
really cool. They're
Yeah,
great people.
yeah, Jen's from New York, and I actually met her at like a co-work space when she was doing a thing, and I randomly ran into her, and Jeffrey's name came up, and I texted her. I'm like, hey, I met this really cute girl. You think I should go out with her?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
What do you say?
He said she's too good for you.
So that's funny. But listen, Scott, I have been like so enjoying your stuff.
Thank you.
I rediscovered you. I found your email. Like I found I used to get your emails. And I realized that I was like, oh yeah, my mom had your book and I read it and I was like, it was really good. I really should read more of it.
Cool.
And I did. And so I was like, oh my God, this is great stuff. And so I was like, and then you're like an artist too. So I'm like, okay, you got to come on my podcast.
Sure, man. Love talking art.
Awesome. So what I was interested in is learning the entrepreneurial mindset, because that is very elusive to me. I cannot seem to wrap my brain around that. How did you, I guess just tell your story and how you juggle like so many things, like how much you do, like movies, you do music, you have this business. How do they feed off of each other, and how do you have time for everything?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that question really has changed a lot over the years, because I've done so many different variations of what you would call a creative career. When I was in high school and college, I was playing music and playing at coffee shops during the 90s coffee shop craze. I was doing all that stuff, and then got into writing books when I was a senior in college, which led to kind of like launching my business a little bit more professionally. And so like I worked at a furniture store. I was a bartender. I did sort of full-time jobs while getting my business going. Then I let go of that, and then I went full-time. And I did full-time for a long time, and then I got burnt out and went back to like working a full-time job and doing my projects on the side. And I've really found a good balance now. So I think in the beginning it was a lot different. It was much more of the enterprise, and I was using my art to make a living, which I still do in many ways. I work full-time at a startup as a writer, and then I have my own practice outside of that. So I still do it, but now I have this really great like dual citizenship. That's the way that I think about it, is like I have a full-time job, I'm a part of a team, and then I do my own stuff. And I find that by compartmentalizing them in that way, it allows them all to feed on each other and to work together, but also set boundaries where it's like, cool, I can have my day at work, and then when someone at work bothers me, or I have some issue where I'm doubting my creative abilities at work, I can write a song about that outside of work and keep those two things separate, but they still nurture each other. So that's how I'm able to find time and to balance it all.
Cool. So they all feed off of each other.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah. So do like if you write a song about a coworker or something, do they know?
No, well, no, they don't. And it's like, because my editorial calendar is so far out, by the time that song is public, if it's on Spotify, once an album is out, that'll be years later, because I'm just way ahead of stuff. And music in particular, I have to play a song 50 times in public before it's ripe, before it's ready to record. So like, as an example, I finished a song on Sunday that I had written over the weekend, not about my coworkers, just unrelated, but I wrote a song on Monday and then, or on Sunday. And then Monday is my performance day. So before I go to work on Mondays, I busk in Prospect Park in Brooklyn.
Ooh.
So I get to play for about an hour and a half, or however long I'm playing. Early Monday morning, it's a great time to play. No one's there. I don't have to fight to get a good spot, in the tunnel where I play. And then, I try out a new song. So, it's always a little rough the first few times. I haven't quite found the center of gravity yet, but it will find its center. Eventually, I will record it. And sometimes if it's about a coworker in a positive way, I will send them a link like, hey, I wrote this song about you. I just wanted you to hear it. I love you, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's a song about what a bitch someone is, then I probably shouldn't give them.
Leave them unnamed. That's funny. So I was curious, and I was reading like, you have your website is like full of all of these articles, and okay, for one, where did you find the time to write all of these? You say you love to write, so that's I can see why that would be like you be prolific, but I mean, that's still, that's like a lot of articles.
I know. So, I mean, loving to write is a great form of leverage. If you don't, it will take longer and be harder. So I do have that working for me. And then the other piece is like, I'm really disciplined. Like I make sure that I write every day. And over the years, I have written more or less depending on what I was doing. Like I worked at an advertising agency once that I didn't have that much to do. It just wasn't that kind of job. So I'm like, I wrote a book just at work throughout the days because I had the time to do it. So like that was how that worked. That's not the case. And that's great. I was happy to do that. It's not always the case like that, but like, so those two things, I love to do it and I'm really disciplined. But then the larger piece, which where I think a lot of people fall off, is like, I have a really good toolkit. Mm-hmm. So like the concept of where do you find the time? I don't think of it that way. I don't think of like, where do I find the time? I think of like, what tools can I use to feel fulfilled and to create the things that I want and get the things inside of my head out of it. So like I have hundreds and hundreds of tools for every possible situation in which it might be challenging and there might be an obstacle to getting the things done. And I've been using and building these tools.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic way of doing it. I think that's a very entrepreneurial way to think of things, just to use what you got, basically, and make every moment count.
Yeah. And to think about what you don't got too. I have a good sense of my weaknesses and where I struggle with things. And so I try to find ways to either circumvent that or go in another direction or create the leverage I need to go past something that I struggle with. Like as an example, so let's say there's a topic I don't know anything about and I'm not excited about. Like, okay, I have to write X about Y and I got nothing. I have nothing to say. I don't care. But I have to do this anyway. So my hack is like, okay, cool. What do I have to do to make this exciting for myself? What's my entry point that will use something I like? So like, maybe that's as simple as like, okay, this sucks. I don't want to write this assignment. I have 100 playlists for every possible situation and weather and mood. So I'm like, okay, cool. I know if I do this playlist, that'll help. Okay. I think if I start reading a couple things, that might get me going. So like, I have all these little tools to like get the machine up to operating temperature. So that way I'm ready. And otherwise, without those tools, I would just be like, yeah, this is boring. I don't care. I'm not going to write about it.
Yeah. So I think that's very true. That's the exact same with me. What are some examples of the tools that you need?
Well, funny you should ask. A couple of years ago, I built a online learning program based around the tools. It's called Prolific. Mm-hmm. So you can go there. It's all free. Getprolific.io, and there's a couple hundred tools on there. So I have it open because I thought you might ask.
Yes.
So let's pick one. Okay, here's a really good one. Okay, this is called compression. The name of the tool is about compression. And the challenge that I think people have is like, okay, I wish I had more time to write, but there's only so many hours in the day. Like everybody can relate to that problem because, you know, time is this non-replenishable resource. We don't own time. Like we only have so much, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I find that the constraints are really helpful. See, when I was working full-time by myself, I had all day, every day just to write. And my output is actually better now when I have the constraints where it's like, okay, I got to log on to work at about 11 because my company's on the West Coast. I'm like, cool. So if I get up at 5 and I take the time in the morning to do the things I need to do and give myself some constraints, that way I can write the stuff when I show up to work. Like I got my personal stuff done.
Right.
So there's ways that people can compress time. We can think about it like, okay, if I change the language around time and try to put some constraints around it, then it becomes a little bit easier and it becomes less of a barrier to think that we don't have time. We have to kind of change the way we think about it. And we realize that we don't need as much time as we thought we did. It's like the Parkinson's rule that, work expands to fill the time allotted to do it. Like if you have 8 hours to write, you'll write for 8 hours. If you have 2 hours to write, you'll do the same thing. So like set a timer, put an alarm on it, but compress it in a way. And that's a great sort of assumption we can have going in to overcome that challenge.
I like that. I think that's really great. That's a great way to reframe. I don't know, just bad things. There are things we think are bad into really good things. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was also curious about, you were saying in one of your talks about your business, I think your hello, my name is Scott.
Right.
Saying that you didn't have all the whys, you didn't really know exactly why you were doing all of this. But you said just to get started, get moving on it. Right. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because how do you, so you start doing something and you get in a flow, but then you're like, I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. I don't really have a plan. Is this even worth continuing? Is this a waste of time?
Right. And these are all the questions that we ask ourselves. And these are not always the best questions. Like I understand the concept of the 5 whys. Every company I've ever worked at is like, just keep asking why. And you're like, okay, cool. I get that. I acknowledge and respect that process. For what I'm discussing, there are questions that we ask that mess us up. The first one is why. A, we don't always know why. B, even if we did know why, that's not always enough. And C, like, I'm not sure why is the most important word, right? Okay. So how tends to be more interesting. So it's like, okay, why should I do this? Well, maybe I don't know why. Like, I don't know. It's like, all right, instead of asking why, like, how am I going to do this? Like, oh, okay, well, first I'll do this and then I might try this. So it's just like you go into execution mode when you think about how, and you get away from the why in the event that why is not what you're trying to do. I think that's one piece of it. But I also think that like momentum is so important. And like there's something called the cold start problem. It's something very common in the software engineering world, which is like, how do we get over that hump, that initial thing where it's like in software, if they don't have enough data, if they don't have enough like systems running, they can't start, they can't move forward. And that applies to virtually everything. My dog, for example, sometimes can't get over the hump because like she's stubborn and doesn't want to leave the house. And we're like, we do a little, it's called pumping the brakes on the leash. We just pull the leash a little. And once she gets over the hump on the first, 20 yards, she's good to go.
Right.
And we all have that version of that hump. And I think we can do that, which is like, recognize that there's a hump, that we got to get over this thing and just say, you know what? It's like, whatever questions I'm asking, like, I don't care. I'm just going to start. I'm just going to start doing things or writing things or drawing or do whatever. It's like, I will allow the motion to move me forward and the path will reveal itself. The why will come, maybe not, but a lot of times it does. If you just start going, you get the snowball rolling down the mountain. I know I'm mixing metaphors, but I love doing that. Yeah. So it's like, whatever metaphor works for people. It's like, get momentum, get things going. I don't care how you get them going. It doesn't even have to be right or good. It doesn't have to make sense. It's like, just start anything and then let it reveal itself to you.
Okay. So the answer is kind of in the process.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm just such a process guy. There are people that are not process people and they want the outcome and the goal and the KPIs. Like, I get that. And I very much appreciate that too. Mm-hmm. So when you're a very outcome results oriented person, that's going to change the equation for you. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. There's no right way to be. I think for a while I was a little bit more outcome and results driven, but I mean, I'm such a process person. Like, I don't care when it's done. I don't want to say I don't care. I have let go of the outcome and the results. Mm-hmm. It's the classic Hinduism of like, you have the fruit and then the labor and then the fruits of the labor. So like, the fruits of the labor, not my problem. Like, I'm focusing on the labor and then whatever happens, because mm-hmm. I can't control that. I can only control process. So that's the way I think about it. And that's enough for me.
Okay. What if you what if you are in the process and you're still kind of feeling it out and you still don't really know, still are learning the process?
Right. I mean, can you give me the specific example?
Like for me, I'm doing this podcast. I'm starting a business and trying to start a business, and I'm doing the things that I've been told I need to do, and I mean, and I'm having a blast doing it, and that's the reason I'm doing it. But yeah, so I mean, I guess just knowing that the thing that you're doing is right. What keeps you going when you're in that process?
Yeah, it's really hard to know if it's right, because sometimes in the beginning we don't have enough data yet to understand that. So I think what each person has to do is figure out how we calibrate rightness ourselves. There's tons of ways to do it. Like, there's always the listen to your body piece, which is really important. Think about like, what are the physical sensations that happen in your body when you're onto something? Like, I think about when I get like a new song or a new piece of a song that I'm really excited about, I'm like, oh shit, I got it. This is it right here. And like, I feel my physiology changing. So I would challenge people to think about what that looks like. Like, do you get the goosebumps, or like, what is, do you get sexually aroused? I mean, that's a big part of creativity as well. So like, whatever the physical sensation is, I would urge people to listen to that.
Okay.
Then I would start listening to like some broader signs. Probably don't go to feedback from other people yet. We got to be really careful about boundaries on feedback. But like, before we get to the feedback piece, it's like, think about like, are you excited? I know that a song in particular is something I'm pumped about if I'm singing it when I go to bed and then in the morning I'm still singing it. Because it's not that it's like a hook, I'm not writing hit songs, but like, if it's stuck in my brain, I'm like, okay, that's good, because that means my brain is telling me like, this is good, we should keep doing this.
Right.
So those are some other sort of larger things you should look at. And then like, look, if you don't know if it's right and you've tried listening to yourself and listening to what the universe is telling you and all that kind of stuff, like, ask people, make sure you ask the right people. There's tons of people who want to shit all over the dream and like, they're not interesting. So like, find a couple people that, that are going to be positive. They're going to give you good feedback. They'll be honest with you, but like, they'll be encouraging and get their take on it. Like, sometimes you need one person to believe you, and that's enough. And you can make a meal out of that for 10 years.
Right.
So if you have these trusted people, like, call, put out the bat signal and give them a call and say like, hey, okay, I have this thing. I don't know if it's right. I might be crazy. What do you think? And then just sometimes they're like, God, I don't know. That sometimes they're not sure and it's kind of deflating. And sometimes they're like, oh my God, I've been waiting for you to do that. Like, that's a really good piece of feedback when these trusted people tell you, I'm so glad you're doing this, or I've been hoping you would do this, creative expression. That's like, oh, well, damn, why didn't I do that earlier? Those are the other things you might want to listen to as well.
Yeah. And also like for artists, like if they're trying out a new medium or something like that, if they're spending time away from their normal practice, and would it be how would they know it would be worth it to try something else? I would imagine trying something else and failing even, because you said failing is a good thing.
I love failing. I'm a huge fan of it. Success just isn't that interesting. Failing is way more educational. And nobody gets humility from success. Humility, like success, it's great for the ego, and we're excited and we're proud, and those feelings are important because we'll need those later.
Right.
But the humility is really good too. And I appreciate what you're saying about a different medium. Like that's a really hard thing to do. It's if you were a nonfiction person, you went to fiction. If you were a painter and you tried drawing or clay or mixing it up, and like to me, I think the challenge is so much less tactical than it is psychological. I think the hard piece is the self-compassion.
Yeah.
And just like being patient with yourself and trying to like acknowledge the fact that I've been painting for 29 years and I'm going to start drawing tomorrow. It's like, well, how good do you really think it's going to be? It's not going to look, it won't look like one of those like Da Vinci sketchbooks where it's like this gorgeous, piece of note taking that he did. You're like, oh my God, like it's not going to look like that. And we have to have that compassion, have that understanding, and just like be proud of the fact that we're trying something new and maybe it works and maybe not. And, stick with it for a little while. And if there's no energy, like if we're not excited about it, like then screw it, then find something else.
Well, and you said something about you want to get reactions out of people, and whether good or bad. But how do you how do you kind of rationalize the negative feedback? What's your self-talk when you get negative feedback?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to grab one of the tools here. There's so many, I can't keep track of them. So I got to use my own software. Okay. This is something that I thought about a couple of years ago, and it's called buffering. And buffering is a way to help us get better at dealing with rejection or negative feedback, or criticism, however you want to think about it. So let's say if for the people listening, imagine a spectrum, and on the left side of the spectrum, we have, okay, I've done this work and I'm getting ready to share it with my boss or with a friend or with customers or whatever. Okay, on the middle is when you're actually the moment when you're sharing it, right? And then after, on the right-hand side of the spectrum, is what happens right after that. Okay. So I think about this a lot in the context of like a meeting where it's like, okay, every Monday I have my 5 p.m. meeting with the whole team, and I'm always going to be doing this sort of presentation. So I think about before I go into that meeting, I mean, even if this is like a couple minutes before it, I want to remind myself like, okay, like no matter what happens, like I'm valuable and I'm creative, and none of these people can take that away from me. And whatever happens, happens. And I cannot control the response of this, but I've done the work that I had to do to prepare for this, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm ready to go. Some version of that sort of, pump up speech you kind of give yourself. Then you go in there, okay? And then it's the moment. And there's so many nuances to getting feedback from people, and especially when it's critical feedback. And I used to have a graphic designer that I would work with, and every time I would give him, something critical or something I didn't like, he had a really good way. He would just he's like, okay, that's great feedback, thank you. Didn't say he agreed with it. Didn't get defensive. He's like, oh yeah, that's a good call out. Ooh, yeah, good feedback. So like no opinion, just like take it in and honor the people who are, willing to share. It's like, they're nice enough to give feedback. It may be horrible feedback. They may have no taste. They may have never done marketing in their life. So they have no, they have no drawing ability, and they criticize. You want to be like, oh, screw you. It's like, no, just say thank you. And,
that's awesome.
Take a breath.
That's awesome.
That's right. So there's a way to be receptive in that. Like, when I get critical feedback, like I kind of shut down. So I have to like remind myself like, okay, cool. Thank you. Like let the blood go in your face and let people know, take notes, do all that. And then the most important part is over. So I've prepared myself for the feedback. I've gotten the feedback, and now it's like, okay, how do I feel? Like I'm angry. I feel rejected. I feel sad. I feel frustrated. I feel confused by this feedback that doesn't make any sense. Like a week ago, this person asked me for this, and now they want this. What the hell? So just like try to get a sense of how you feel. And then it's like discernment. It's like, okay, why might this person be right? Where are they coming from? What perspective are they seeing that I didn't see? Like, how did I potentially mess this up? Where did I go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Start with that kind of stuff and just be honest and be like, yeah, I probably could have done better on X, Y, Z. And then, comes the fun part, which is like, okay, why is this person an idiot? Why are they out of their minds? Think contextually, you know what? Like, this person is 21 years old. I'm 42 years old. I've been working longer than they've been alive.
Right.
Screw them. I'm amazing. Kiss my ass. Like, you got to do that. So
that's awesome.
That's called buffering.
I love that. I love that. So these are, I'm going to make use of all of your tools now, I think.
Sure. They're all there for you.
Oh, fantastic. And I also, I wanted to talk about like you creating opportunities for yourself.
Sure.
You said that you started your own record label and you hired yourself. You signed yourself.
Right.
How cool is that?
It was so cool. I got this idea from my dad, who he graduated from high school. My dad graduated in 1970. So in 1970, when he was a senior in high school, him and his buddies played a concert at like the auditorium, and they recorded it and they made a record. And he showed this to me when I was like the same age. He's like, yeah, this is an LP, right? So, I was born in 1980, so I didn't quite get the vinyl thing, but he had a vinyl of him. I'm like, that's you? He's yeah. And ever since I saw that, I'm like, I'm doing that. I have to make my own album.
Right.
But we always had recording equipment in the basement because my dad plays and we would do jam and stuff like that. But when I was a freshman in college, I was like, this is a full-on project. I'm starting the label. This is what it's going to be called. I'm going to put out this album. I'm going to sell it to my friends, and I'm going to do the things, whatever. I'm going to get involved with the radio station and promote it and do all that stuff. And I just started doing it. Like, starting a record label, quote, I didn't have to incorporate. I didn't have to do anything. It was all permission. Like, people think it's production. It's permission. It's like this decision in your brain. Like, okay, I am worthy to say that I'm going to put my stuff on wax and share it with the world. Like, that's the hard part. So when I hired myself, which I wrote a book of that same title, Hiring Yourself, and I'm a firm believer in that like whatever issues we have is so much less practical and so much more around permission. And if we can nail the permission mindset, then the rest of it, I won't say it falls into place, but it's sure less of an uphill battle.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Wow. I'm so glad I rediscovered your stuff again. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Absolutely.
And I know where Creve Coeur is.
You do? How's that?
Because my grandparents used to live in Webster Groves.
Oh, get out of here. I love Webster.
I do too.
Webster's great. And yeah, my family has grown up in Creve Coeur and still lives there now. So we get to back in a few weeks and go to Creve Coeur Lake, go around the park, and it's pretty special.
So that's another reason why I was like, he's so cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Brooke.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much to Scott Ginsberg for chatting with me about your art and how to get into the entrepreneurial mindset. This is such important stuff. If you want to see more of Scott, go to his website, hellomynameisscott.com. He's got a wealth of articles that you can read, and you can order his books as well. Thanks for listening. This is a Hotspur Media production. Music by Corey Knoxville.